Hi, Kathryn here for Circle Art Designs. Today I'm going to be working on a double strand stretch bracelet. Say that 5 times real fast. And matching earrings. This is project number 5 from the January Bargain Bead box. And although I still have some beads left, they'll be going into my stash after this. And we'll move on to the February box. But today we're concentrating on a double strand stretch bracelet. Now, I really wasn't sure what to call this type of stretch bracelet, but we will be using a double stretch cord. So that's why I named it this. So let's turn our eyes to the mat and get started. And as always, when I turn my eyes down to my table, I am met with this beautiful glass that says, "Give thanks to the Lord." And I was thinking about that today. Yesterday and the day before, it got 90 degrees in my house, which is crazy for February, right? And I had to turn on the air conditioning for my little dog. But today when I woke up, it was in the high 30s and has hovered between 39 and 45 all day long with a stiff wind. And I'm giving thanks today to the Lord for my home and the ability to warm or cool my home easily. I think about this often, and my husband remembers it a lot in our evening prayer, because he had the privilege of going to Africa on a teaching mission. And when he did, he was struck by just how much we take for granted in our country. We take for granted of what the Lord has given us. With a push of a button, we can have cool air or heat. And that is an amazing miracle from God. So I thank Him today for just one of these little blessings that is so easy to take for granted. How about you? What are you thankful for today? All right, let's get started now. So let me put up our supply photo. And today we, as I said, will be working with a stretch bracelet. It'll be a double cord. So I have pulled out my 0.7 millimeter Stretch Magic elastic cord or stretch cord. Also, I will be using for my own stash my 6 millimeter rhinestone rondelle spacers. Then right in the left side, we're going to start under the Stretch Magic. I have an 8 millimeter tiger skin jasper bead. This is from the Bargain Bead box for January. Across from that are the 10 millimeter swirled agate beads, also from the Bargain Bead box for January. And right across from that, I will be using the 8 millimeter carnelian beads from the Bargain Bead box again. And down to the right of that, you will see the beautiful labradorite and an 8 millimeter from the same Bargain Bead box. And going across from that, you will see these small little silver beads. These are 4 millimeter silver spacer beads, and I believe I picked these up from Fire Mountain. Going down from that, also I believe from Fire Mountain in my own stash, is a silver 10 millimeter flat spacer bead. And then across from that, you'll see sodalite beads, also from the Bargain Bead box. So now that I have these beautiful beads all fixed in the frame where you can see it, I need to move them over because I have to have some space to work. I'm sorry when I move them over that they're kind of out of the way, but it is what it is. Now for this bracelet, I said it was a 2-strand. That's because part of the bracelet has 2 separate strands of beads on it, and then part of it is I will put both strands of the stretch cord through the one bead, so it will go in building in and building out for this bracelet. Now, when I first got started with stretch bracelets, I thought they were something that, were just throwaway bracelets because, after all, only kids wore them. But recently, I have bought a lot of stretch bracelets that have come from the late 50s through the early 70s that were gorgeous or are gorgeous bracelets, and they're all stretch. So there was a time when stretch bracelets, because of their ease and beauty, were readily available to be bought, and I think that's amazing. So what I didn't show you was that I stretched out about 20 inches of cord. I folded in the middle now and cut it into 2 strips. It really depends on how much cording, how big you want your stretch bracelet. I'm going for a 7.25 inch bracelet, and I will have cord left over, but my thing is always better safe than sorry. Once I've cut it in the middle, I stretch it 2 or 3 times. That's to get the play out of it, because these beads are heavy and I don't want it to stretch out of shape and have to be restrung again. Now, as always, I'm playing with these beads to make sure I know exactly how I want them. I've started out with the flat spacer, then I added that 10 millimeter swirl agate, and then I'm putting the sodalite in the pairs on one side, the tiger skin on the other, putting another 10 millimeter agate and my spacer. I'm going to start out with the 4 millimeter spacer ball, and this I'm putting through both cords, and there's plenty of room for that. Remember, I said some of these things are so heavy that we want to make sure that they have plenty of elastic cord or stretch cord to, I guess it's not really elastic, is it? That's from sewing. Of stretch cord to make sure that this is going to hold. Now I am laying out the pattern as I believe it's going to go. I haven't strung it yet, so I don't know if I like this yet or not. But on the other side, I will be putting the labradorite and the carnelian with the 10 millimeter agate. So on goes this 10 millimeter agate. Now remember, in this first one, I don't know what was wrong with the hole on one side. Later I strung it and it was fine. But it was really giving me a problem right here, and I went, you know what, this sucker is going to go off. So here we go. I changed out beads. I put both of them in. So we start out with the 4 millimeter spacer ball and then the 10 millimeter. And what I decided was, whenever you saw me pulling it there, I decided it needed a little something to hug the corners or the ends of that 10 millimeter bead. So I went ahead and pulled the 6 millimeter rhinestone rondelle spacer. I'm using this in silver and crystal. I don't want to add any more color to this bracelet. It's already colorful enough. But once I've put that on right after my 4 millimeter spacer ball, then I'm going ahead and putting on the 10 millimeter agate, and next another of that 6 millimeter rhinestone rondelles. All right, so we've got that. Now I'm going to put on a 4mm spacer ball. So that is a component that ends up being double stranded, so that you have 2 of your stretch cord going through all of those pieces. But for the next section of the bracelet, we're going to go ahead and clamp this so that it doesn't fall off, and move it down, and then I will go ahead and bead from the other end for the rest of the bracelet. Now that cute little thing I put on there to hold it in place, I got that from the Dollar Tree, and I use them in sewing and in beading, and I love them. So after I have put on that rhinestone rondelle spacer and the 4mm, I am now adding this flat silver spacer bead, the large round flat, and then I will put on another 4mm. I'm going to just repeat that first set of beads with the 4mm, the rhinestone rondelle spacer, the 10mm agate, another rhinestone rondelle spacer, and then another 4mm spacer ball. So that completes one of the sections of the bracelet. So we start with a swirl agate on one end of that beautiful silver tone spacer, and then we end with the same rhinestone rondelle and swirl agate. Now for the next one, I am putting on a spacer ball and 2 tiger eyes on a single strand of the stretch cord, and then another spacer ball. Again, spacer ball, 2 of the tiger skin jasper, and a spacer ball on a single cord. On the other side, I'm going to put on a 4mm spacer ball, just like that. And this time I'm going to put on the sodalite. I'm going to put on 2 of those. And then I'm going to put on another of the spacer balls. These are on individual stretch cord so that they make a divide, and they'll make that beautiful little box just like that. And here I've inserted a photo of exactly what is going on here. So in our component 1, and this is on 2 cords, we have our spacer ball. I know it says, oh yeah, and it's a 6mm rhinestone rondelle spacer, then our 10mm swirl agate bead, another rhinestone rondelle, and the 4mm spacer ball. Going on to component 2, we have our, and again this is on 2 cords, that silver flat spacer bead. These are just beautiful beads. And then going after that, we go back to component 1, where we put on the same thing: spacer ball, rhinestone rondelle, your agate bead, a rhinestone rondelle, and a spacer ball. Now from there we will go on to component 3. In component 3, we separate the 2 cords. On the first cord, we're going to put in the 4mm spacer ball, then 2 of your 8mm tiger skin beads, then another 4mm spacer ball. Then on the next cord, the one you haven't used yet, we're going to put on our 4mm spacer ball, then 2 of the 8mm sodalite balls, and then another of the 4mm spacer ball. And that completes that unit. Now you might be wondering how we're going to tie this together. We're going to put both cords through another one of those 4mm spacer balls, cinch it up tight, and it should look just like that. Isn't that a pretty piece? And now we go back to component 1. And our component 1, oh, Kathryn, what are you doing? In our component 1, oh, I see, I've already put it on. You put on your spacer ball, then you put on your rhinestone rondelle spacer, your 10mm ball, another rhinestone rondelle spacer, and your spacer ball. Now here I'm looking at it and I think this looks really pretty, and I love this. I love this bracelet because it's a stretch bracelet. It's easy to wear, but it has that nice chunkiness about it that I like on my wrist, and I think it is marvelous. Now what we're doing in this next step is we're going to repeat exactly the step we did in the beginning. We've put on that 10mm ball and we've taken it all the way out to the 4mm spacer. So as I'm laying this down, you can see that I am pointing to the first one we did, where we are repeating what we're going to do all the way to the point where we divide those cords. So let's go ahead and get that done. I think I've shown you this enough. I'm going, okay, now these are the tiger skin, these are the sodalite, but we're going to change. Now, if there's too many colors in this bracelet, you can change it at this point and decide, okay, what colors am I willing to use? Or maybe you just want to use one color. You don't even have to use the 10mm if you don't want to. But after you put on that flat silver spacer, you go ahead and put on another one of the single spacer beads, and then you're going to put on, I hope I catch it, the rhinestone rondelle and another of the 10mm balls. I'm sorry, I was talking, my hand is hiding it, so I am not sure that I have put on that rhinestone rondelle. Like I said, some of these beads that I got are just a little too small on one of the holes. I could go ahead and try to move it through. Oh yes, I put on the rhinestone rondelle to move it through one, but since I had so many to choose from, I just went ahead and played with them till I found the one that worked best. Now I'm going, after I pick it up from dropping it, I'm going to go ahead and put on the rhinestone rondelle, and I'm going to put on another one of those 4mm spacer balls. And when we get to this point, after I've taken a look to make sure that I have got all my beads in a row, we're going to divide the cords up again. Now, this time when we divide the cords, it's a little trickier because I have to tell you, I wasn't paying attention to see if they had twisted at all whenever I was working with them. So that's why I was pulling them apart and making sure that I knew where they were coming from. But we're going to go ahead and put on our silver spacers, and I think I'm going to go ahead and put one on each side this time. And then on one side, it's because I'm wanting to see how this is laid, if I still have this twisted. That is absolutely what I am doing because I didn't pay attention whenever I put it together, but I think I've got it straight now. So after you put on your silver spacer on one of the cords, then you're going to go ahead and put on these beautiful red carnelian beads, 2 of them, and then you're going to go ahead and put on another of the spacers. And these, remember, are going on a single cord. Now I have the labradorite And we're going to put, we've already put on a spacer there, so we're putting on 2 of the labradorite, and I chose one that was more green and one that was more blue, and then another spacer. And that is going to finish our second component 3. Remember, component 3, if you're using all the beads, will go from one set of beads and then the next set of beads. So this one is carnelian and labradorite for the second component 3. I guess we could call it component 3A. And so that's what it's going to look like. Isn't that pretty? I just love this. And then I went ahead and put on a 4mm spacer ball to join these 2 together, and keep cinching that up. You don't want any play in this at all, because you want it to have that beautiful triangular look or arrow look between the different sections. From there, we're going to go ahead and put on another one of the rhinestone rondelle spacers and our 10mm ball, and another rhinestone rondelle spacer, and then our 4mm spacer ball. And while we're doing that, would you take a moment and like this video and leave a comment? I really do appreciate all the comments and the likes. And please subscribe if you haven't already, and help us grow this channel together. And I want to tell you, if I ever miss a comment, please know it is just an oversight on my end, because I want to answer everyone, at least at this time. And I hear people all the time say, oh, I have, 1,000 things that I have to answer comments on, and I can't answer all of them. And boy, I understand that completely. But right now, I'm just a little person, and I love hearing from you, and I love answering back. Thank you so much. Okay, so I have fallen out of picture at this point. It's because it is getting so long. But I am continuing on with, I hope I catch this in a moment. I am continuing on doing component 1, component 2, and component 3. And since we have just finished the component 2, I will be doing component 3 in the tiger's skin and the sodalite. So there, it's still not quite in picture, but I am putting on both of the 10mm. I'm getting it in picture to show you what I'm putting on, but it's laying too far off the picture on the mat. So I'm going to speed up this little section here, because I don't seem to be able to understand that you can't see the very end I'm working on, even if I do get the beads in. But what I'm doing now is I'm going to go ahead and repeat, as I said before, I'm repeating myself, the component number 2 the component number 3, but I'm using the sodalite beads, and there goes on a sodalite bead and another sodalite bead. I don't speed it up this fast a lot of times because my hands shake too much. It drives me crazy. And then the spacer ball. Then I'll take the other side, because I have those tiger eyes sighting out there, and I'm putting on, not tiger eye, the tiger skin, putting on both of the tiger skin, because I already have a spacer ball on it, just like I did before. I'm putting on the spacer ball, and then, wow, oh, I know what I did. I took the tiger eye off because I had gotten it on the wrong cord. So once I have got that done, I joined them together, and just like that, and hold it together, and put that on. Isn't that crazy when it goes that fast? And then I will have another component of the Sodalite and Tiger Skin. So it's Sodalite Tiger Skin, Carnelian and Labrador, and Sodalite Tiger Skin. And there is that lovely triangle at the base. And now I am going to take and I'm going to tie my ends, because I've measured this and on my wrist and with a ruler, and it is the way I want it. I'm tying the two together first so that I can use it as a single strand when I tie. And that's what that's going to look like. Isn't that lovely? Oh, you can see my other bracelet. Oh, the other bracelet is bead weaving I did, and it is up on the channel. Okay. And so now I'm going to put on a spacer. I always like to put on these big hole spacers because I like my knot to be hidden. But that is such a big hole spacer that when I put it on the first time, and I hope I show you this, it eats my beautiful triangle. So I'm going to put on a rhinestone rondelle, just like that, and then my spacer. And that's all I'm doing on this side, because I have to be able to get into that spacer to get my knot hidden. So that's what one end will look like. On the other end, I will put another spacer, and when I tie my knot, it's going to go between that spacer and that rhinestone rondelle spacer. And remember to always stretch your cord as you tie. It's a simple tie. It's an overhand knot. So I tie it once, I stretch it till it pops into that area that I want it hid in, just like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tie it again. It says, oh, I got away from you, but that's okay. It hasn't really got away from me. And once I get it down, I'm going to pull it down tight, just like that. Make sure it's together. Then tie it again. I like to do 3 to 4 ties on top. I stretch it out to make sure I can see where that knot is going. And make my tie, stretching it every time. And I will do it again. And then I will do it on the underneath side. And you go, well, why do you do that? Because I have found that it makes it more secure. When I also always use E6000, and I do that because I want to make sure it's not going anywhere. Now, isn't that pretty? And it falls just exactly where I want it to fall, and it will stack really pretty with other bracelets. Yeah, that's really lovely. And with all the colors, you can wear this with anything. And it's just so pretty. So we're going to take this off now that I'm sure that's how I like it. I don't like to get too far into the tying until I make sure it's the way I like it. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tie underneath. Excuse me, I'm going to cough. Thank you. And there you go. Oh, underneath, Kathryn. So I'm moving that back to underneath, and I'm going to tie it and stretch it. And then I'm going to do it again. Just like that. And then I'm going to bring it to the front when I get that second tie in there. And then I will be ready to cut it. Now, once I get ready to cut it and I make sure this is really stretched and tied, I'll go ahead and cut it really close to the knot, because even with the big holes, when you're using a double cord, you want to make sure that you have the a small enough knot that it'll go into your spacer, your big hole spacer. Now, Normally I use E6000, but I also use the Gorilla Glue. And if you remember from my last time I made a stretch bracelet, my E6000 had dried up. So I'm using the Gorilla Glue. I always put it on a toothpick. Actually, I burnt the end of the toothpick doing something else earlier, but it was still usable. So I'm dabbing that all on there. I needed a little more for the bottom. And then I'm going to maneuver that knot, pop it right into the space. Now with this knot, I'm going, oh, I need a little help. So I'm taking that toothpick again and I'm squishing it down in there to make sure it's there. I don't want to get it all over my rhinestone rondelle. And then once I get it in there, I'm pushing it together to see if anything is hanging out, and it was. I did not get my ends cut close enough, so I'm going ahead and snip that so it will fit in there, and there it is. That is finished. Now I just want it to sit until it dries. Now, isn't that a pretty bracelet? I just love this bracelet. It has a real boho feeling to it, and I love it. Next, I decided to do some matching earrings. I wasn't going to, but I decided I would. So for these, I am going to use two of the eye pins and 2 head pins. I'm using the fishhook ear wires. I'm going to use 2 of the 6mm rondelle spacers, the 4mm spacer balls, and I'm going to use a sodalite and a carnelian, 1 bead from each of the sections. So to get started, we're going to take the head pin and make sure it's nice and straight. I'm going to put on a 4mm ball. Then I'm going to put on the sodalite, then a rondelle spacer, and the carnelian, just like that, and another spacer. There you go. I'm sorry, I picked up one that had a rough edge. Okay, so it's going to look like that. That's the first section of a 2-step dangle. And then I'm going to go ahead and use my loopers, put it across the looper, make sure the bead is right up against the edge, mash it, and I have a circle. Let's do this again. So again, we're going to straighten that out. This one was a little more bent than the first one. And we're going to put on the 4mm spacer ball, the sodalite. Now you don't have to put them in the same order, but I'm a matchy kind of person. And then the carnelian, and then another spacer ball, so that the rhinestone rondelle separates them, just like that. We're going to take our loopers, we're going to put it across the jaws, mash it together, take a little bend in it, makes a question mark, and then we have at least the beginning of a circle. Now for these, I'm going to take my straight nose pliers, I'm going to put it inside and move it till it touches the wire. Then I'm going to straighten it out a little bit and make sure it's closed. And that is the first component in a 2-step dangle. Again, I love 2-step dangles, in case you didn't know, because they give so much motion. And it gives you just a flash of color right at the face. And that's wonderful. At least I think it's wonderful. All right, for the next component, we're going to take the eye pins. They already have a loop on one side. This is the real simple component. I'm going to go ahead and pull out my 2mm little silver spacer balls because I don't want the large ones. And I am going to go ahead and put on a 2mm spacer ball. Then I'm going to, oh, come on, you got it. Then I'm going to put on that flat spacer bead in silver, and then another of the 2mm. And then I'm going to use, you guessed it, my loopers. And I take that looper, I'm going to put it all the way across until the bead touches the side, just like that. Make sure it's in the same plane so that the loops will be in the same plane. Mash it down, push it back till it makes the little question mark. That one closed. We're blessed. Thank you, Lord. Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to do it again. The 2 millimeter, the spacer bead, the 2 millimeter, and then we're going to put it in a looper and close it again. I am so envious of these people that make these loopers work where they close all the time. They must have a better set of loopers than I do, but I don't mind closing it up with the straight nose pliers. It's just sometimes I go, really? I would really, really like mine to close like that too. So this one didn't close completely. I check them even if it looks like they closed. So I'm going ahead and closing it and making sure that it is not running off to one side, but that it is actually closing. Now, the thing that I did that I don't normally do is I have taken my straight nose pliers to try to close these. Usually I close them with the chain nose pliers because it works better, but I am being persistent here. No, not that persistent. Let's take the curved chain nose and close this thing up. My straight nose just do not grip enough for me to be able to close it. I know people who do. In fact, there's this one lady that I watch all the time, and she's amazing. And she does not have to chase her beads, but I have to chase my beads. So don't worry if you're not perfect. It's fine. Just enjoy the process. You know, that's one of the things that I think I have learned over the years, and I'm so thankful that the Lord has shown me that, to enjoy the process. We lose so much in life when we don't enjoy the process. All right, so this is what I call a two-step dangle. The first step will be on eye pins. This is silver plated. I'm trying to show you the little mark there. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and open up jump rings. I don't want to take a chance of busting the bottom of that fish hook by opening it. So these are little 5 millimeter jump rings. I'm putting my dangle on first, the bead part of the dangle, and then I'm putting on the flat bead spacer second. I'm going to close that up, and then I will add it to my fish hook ear wires. And like I said, when you have a two-step dangle, both sets swing, and they are just, I think they're just beautiful. And so once I get that done, I did the other side. Again, remember to twist when you open your jump rings. You put it between 2 pliers. You only twist one side of it because you do not want to stretch these out of shape. Now that's going on first, and then I closed it, and I'm going to go, wait a minute, what was I thinking? And so I'm going to go ahead and open it back up, put on my fish hook, and close it. Now these earrings are not as, it's not as important you get the front facing the front because both sides are the front. And they're going to spin anyway, and so it will be lovely. Again, between 2 chain no pliers, twist the wrist. Now, if you notice, I looked at it and I went, what's going on here? And I went ahead, here I'm showing you, oh, this one has been turned to the front. So I'm going to have to correct that because you can have one turn to the front and one turn to the side. So I'll just take my chain nose pliers and twist it until they're both turned to the side. And there you have these earrings. But I decided to do a shorter version that will also be up in the shop. I love these. Lots of people love long dangles, but some people like short dangles. So I put these on lever backs, and they are made the same way. They're just a single dangle and instead of the 2 dangle, and either one would be gorgeous with this bracelet. So this is the 2-step dangle with the bracelet. Isn't that lovely? I really like this set. I know you hear me say that a lot, but if I don't love it, you never see it. chunk it. I take the beads apart and I start over. And then this is with the shorter version, and that's a single step dangle. And I really love them. Here are some pictures. Thank you so very much for joining me today on this beading adventure. I hope you've had a good time. I hope you've laughed and smiled, because I know I have certainly laughed and smiled. Now, I am putting this up in the shop. I will be putting it up as a single bracelet and 2 separate pairs of earrings. That way, if you would like to have matching earrings, you will be able to choose whichever one you would like to have. This will be in the shop at circleartdesigns.square.site, or the domain I've paid for, which is circleartdesigns.net. It takes you to the same Square site. Have a wonderful, wonderful day and a blessed rest of your week. I will see you later in the week. Kathryn, circleartdesigns.net. God bless y'all.